Shukran. Assalamu alaikum. Sabah al-khair. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, especially the esteemed excellencies. I want to start with a preamble before we start the discussion. But before I do, I want you to accept an apology from me. You might find, as you probably gathered, that I've got a bit of a hoarse voice and a croaky voice. I'm recovering. It's not the emotion and the excitement of AI, it's the after effects of a cold. So do forgive me if at any point I tend to lose my voice. It would be remiss of me to not mention the way AI has arrived. History has demonstrated to us that nothing appears suddenly. It's progressive. Although the development of technology in the latter half of, let's say, 20th century and the early part of 21st century has been at a rapid pace, but do not forget, the man's preoccupation with his alter ego, an artificial representation of him or herself, has been in the human psyche for thousands of years. You can go back into records 3,000 years ago, and you can see mentions of this device or entity that thinks and speaks like us. And in many ways, it's been from a latent fear, the fear of being taken over by this entity at some point. We are fascinated and yet fearful of this entity. 3,000 years ago, in Greek mythology, in Egyptian writings, in the ancient Chinese writings, and I've seen them in Beijing, and many others, of course, the Sumerian, Babylonian, Indian, you can see mentions of this alternative person who is not alive, but alive. And then, of course, it progressed. This kind of preoccupation with artificial life has been progressing. But there is a contingent of people that I think we should mention and remember and honor. There was a whole cohort that suddenly emerged and accelerated everything at a certain point in history, which has been the foundation of what we are doing now. I am, of course, referring to the Arab scientists, Ibn Khaldun, Ibn al-Arabi, Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, al-Batani, Ibn al-Baytar. There are numerous, huge number of scientists who've had an effect on science and have progressively brought us to where we are. But there is one person whose very name underpins generative AI. Do you know who I'm referring to? The one scientist whose very name underpins generative AI. Al-Khwarizmi. Algorithm. Remember, generative AI does not work without algorithm. It is thanks to Al-Khwarizmi, 800 years ago, that we are where we are. And of course, that acceleration that was injected into Western society through Andalusia is coming to bear on us now in the 21st century. So there's been a progression. I would like to remember those people. And I'm sure he's somewhere smiling on and looking at his legacy, and we are his legacy here. Of course, if I bring it forward and accelerate to the 20th century, we can't forget all the science fiction and science fantasy writers who are progenitors of our imagination. Isaac Asimov, Philip K. Dick, Robert Heinlein, H.G. Wells, so many of them have injected these images of an artificial life. And so when we talk about generative AI, we talk about AI in itself, it is only because suddenly ChatGPT came into the public consciousness that people think AI suddenly emerged. No such thing. It's always been there. It is only because it's now available to us in everyday life. And it's, of course, racing towards us. The theme here is sprinting to the future. I disagree. The future is racing towards us. It's coming fast. If we don't accept it, if we don't embrace it, we might end up in deep trouble. So we need to evaluate it, we need to look at it, embrace it. Some people, of course, look at it from a dystopian perspective. They think this is an existential threat, that it might destroy us. These are the doomsayers. The other side of this dichotomy of opinion is, of course, the utopians, the ones who see a positive outcome, the ones who see a progressive, beneficial outcome for us. I know where I stand, but I will not reveal my opinion because I want the opinion of our panels. So let's start the discussion. Thank you for indulging me. One of the things that we want to discuss is, first of all, a general understanding of what my panelists here think of generative AI and, of course, the emergence of this technology. So if I may, I will start with Dr. Bana. If I could ask you, what is your opinion about what's happening? Now, I'm talking from a personal perspective here, so please feel free.
Well, good morning to everybody, and thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for just quick and very good introduction. I need really to express my thanks and appreciation for mentioning these top gurus who really laid down the floor for us hundreds and more, even 1,000 years, particularly Al-Khwarizmi. Basically, I'm not an IT specialist, I'm a human resource specialist. And we are really gathering today in a human resource management association, society, with different diversified people of specialization, background, coming from different sector, private sector, public, entrepreneurs, etc. Basically, my views is in that, yes, we are talking about one side, particularly being a human resources, is with the artificial intelligence from one side, and the human resource intelligence from the other side, and now generative AI is really coming forward. So what I would like to say, it's not a choice. As you said, the future is really coming so fast. Irrespective where you are, irrespective what you are doing, you have no choice rather than either you really work it out or you will be moving forward. Therefore, we'll talk about the opportunities and the threat. So what I need really to say, and very quickly, when it comes to generative AI, is making really a big change forward for us in the future, particularly on us as a human being, as a human resources. This is just basically, we'll eliminate on it, but this is the way I look at it.
Yeah, now, it is going to have a personal effect, regardless of whether you like it or not. Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's a personal effect not only even at work, even at our life, at homes and the community and so on. And we'll be seeing that during the discussion.
Absolutely. If I may turn to what do you like?
Yes. Thank you for the invitation. It's really good, and I'm really glad to be always in Ashram events. It's always special to be here. So thank you, Dr. Ghalib and your team, for this arrangement. As you know, the speaker at the beginning of the event, he was talking about new normals. And we've experienced those new normals in our workplace and in our houses. I think with working with a big number of passengers, like I can share with you that per day we have a process of 50,000 passengers departure and arrival. Imagine if you actually plug in AI or any of those gadgets that will tell you the trend of the passengers, that can tell you what do they like to have, what coffee they would like to get, what products they would like to have in the duty-free, for example. And what we do actually is, like many other airports, we use the technology in differentiating the product that we sell in the duty-free and allocate the aircraft stand near that shop. So like, for example, if we have Chinese passengers, we put them next to the high-end products, because we know that their purchase power in that high-end products is very valuable. So we change the stand of the aircraft according to that.
So that's very customized experience.
Yes. Another product that I'd like also to mention, we process also 1,000 bags per month, which is, no, not 1,000, 1 million, sorry, 1 million a month, which is almost 40,000 a day. To know the size of the bags, what the bags have, the security side of it, it really makes a big difference when you actually apply the AI into this work, and it actually tells you how you can differentiate between the passengers that's going to the east from passengers going to the west. So it really helped us in making better operation process inside the airport.
Has it impacted your cost structure?
It did a lot. I mean, in the pandemic, we had the cameras that actually gives the temperature of the passenger. We fixed them, and it actually made better processing for us. Oh. During the new airport, we've implemented many technologies that weren't in the old airport, which made us save lots of cost saving per day.
Very good. Thank you for that. Ala, if I may ask you from the telecoms perspective, what is your view about AI?
Well, good morning, everyone. And thank you for the invitation, and it gives me a great pleasure to be among this panel. In telecom, we believe that we started seeing the impact of AI already. We've been trying to deploy technologies not as advanced as Gen AI today, but we've seen the impact especially on the frontline surfaces. The call center of Amantel, the front lines of Amantel deals with millions of transactions on a yearly basis. So the call center of Amantel receives around 10,000 calls every day. And visitors to Amantel outlets last year, if I recall, exceeded 1.4 million visits. So we've been automating a lot of these processes. And we've been automating and simplifying transactions for the customers. With the Gen AI capabilities, I believe that things will change dramatically on the customer experience and customer service in the coming 2 to 3 years. Now, this will have an impact, 2 impacts, I would say. The first is we're going to elevate, improve experience, but then we have the people who are serving and occupying those jobs. And as most of you know, that front-line jobs, they employ a lot of people. And I'm not saying that there is a risk here, but there is a responsibility that sits on the organization and the company to reskill people, make them ready, for the upcoming changes that is already taking shape.
Very good.
So it's an opportunity, I would say,
now,
for them, but it's a responsibility on us as a company as well to reskill people and make them prepared for the next
Excellent.
phase.
Thank you. Now, of course, one of the problems is at the moment we're just starting to apply some of these things, some of the tools, but the tools themselves are still unclear as to how they're going to impact us, and they are quite intrusive. So I'm quite curious, but if I may reserve that question for later and turn to Gaith, if you don't mind. So from a logistics perspective, I'm very curious how that industry is handling this emergence of new technology.
Assalamu alaikum جميعا. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure. I think just reflecting of our colleagues' thoughts here, I think we've been doing a lot of data science things in the last, let's say, 10 years, where we had, or we still have, people specialized in developing algorithms on a very specific use cases. I think Professor Peter in the previous session, if I recall, he brought another terminology called content science. For me, any organization, the knowledge of such organization is not The information, the information in the database and in the information systems and all of that, but it's the knowledge of the people, the unstructured data, the documents that we have in all the your file server, the presentation, the emails you have. I think the Gen AI is unlocking the use of the content science and make it available to every employee in the organization, not necessarily an IT personnel. And that is very important thing. That's why we see Gen AI actually is attracting everybody because it is available, it's intuitive, anybody can use it. Reflecting on logistics, on the use of artificial intelligence, of course, you could understand that logistics is a very complex industry. We deal with a lot of shipping lines, a lot of manufacturing ports across the globe. It's a very complex ecosystem that would require an integration and the flow of data from different organizations to our organization. And the differentiator in any logistics industry is the efficiency. If you don't deliver items, cargo on time, you would actually be out of the game. And that's basically what we see would actually differentiate us from the others. Using the AI to automate the data flow from different systems throughout the ecosystems and make it available to the decision maker on time. And I think when I say decision maker, not necessarily the C levels here, is the people who actually, the driver who is driving and delivering an item to the customer. That information is very critical, the right address, the right information in his hand, the right timing when is the customer actually available in his house. That is very critical because that's the efficiency gain we get. And I think that's what is my personal view on the AI. Gen AI actually is frog leaving actually the other use of the AI because it is available, it is accessible. You don't need people actually to learn about the use of AI. Anybody actually using Gen AI today, I can relate.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'll tell you a story about it later about my mother, who's 85 years old, and she's able to use tools now that she never did before because they are thought-driven rather than skilled or technical-driven. It's absolutely true.
And that is very important and a very important trend for our people and HR people. I think we see people going to retirement, but actually the productivity by using the Gen AI, the productivity of all people might actually be better than a very young people nowadays. It depends on how they use actually the Gen AI in the future.
Very good. Let's explore that a bit further later, but if I may turn to you, Etisalat. Yep. Obviously telecoms, I put the two telecoms there to see if you can compete against each other, but Microsoft, Apple and Samsung, as you know, recently announced that they're going to embed AI into the devices. What is your thought from a digital transformation perspective, from the way you interact with the retail customers?
أولاً السلام عليكم جميعاً وشكراً دكتور غالب منال وأشرم Management for giving me the chance to be here with you to share some insights. I work in Etisalat UAE, and thank you for raising this transformation that's happening in telecom industry. So in a nutshell, telecom players realize that their role should not be serving as a pipeline or a carrier for content and data, and that's it. Because they realize also they are missing a big share from the revenue generated from the industries that needs the data to function like Facebook, Meta, Instagram, Twitter, okay? So mega transformation are now taking place in the telecom industry, meaning that the telecom are now transforming from a traditional telecom to a total com, or let's say a big platform, whereby we started to see different services and products are taking place like entertainment, fixed connectivity, microfinancing, money transfer. They started to invest in startups. So lots of transformation are taking place in the telecom industry, and big players have anticipated this in an early stage and acted very swiftly and changed their strategies and started to implement a mega transformation program. Talking about Etisalat, UAE, we anticipated this years ago, and we already completed the digital transformation for all our retail stores, whereby we used the technology in the right way. And this is very important point to highlight. Sometimes there is a trend now in the whole world, which is the AI, right? And sometimes big organizations, especially the ones have strong or solid financial capabilities, they get the technology without exactly knowing what they should do with the technology. And this is very, very important point to take care of. Sometimes the use of technology harm the customer experience if it is not used in the right way. For example, the virtual IVR, when it is used to some premium or prestige customers, they're turning off those customers, right? So we need to take care of how we use the technology and how we use the AI. One important point is being shared by my colleagues is the role of leadership and that related to people. So people needs to be in the heart of everything we are doing. Whether we are talking about digital transformation or AI, they are the main pillars that they're going to execute and evolve the AI even better. Yesterday, I got an email from Dr. Linda Hills from Harvard University asking me to complete a survey because they are now studying and assessing the role of leadership when it comes to AI and its evolution. So I think AI comes with great unlimited potentiality and the possibilities. However, at the same time, it comes with its own risk and threats. I read a few days ago about a New Zealand supermarket. Its name is Pack and Save, who tried to inject the AI in its application. So in a nutshell, they created an application whereby they encourage the customers to use up the leftovers from the ingredients. So you put whatever ingredients at your home, and the AI generates you meals. And after a few days, they discovered that customers started to brood the ingredients they put at home, and the application started to generate recipes that are not only appetizing, but also it can harm the human being if they have this food. So it's very important to watch out the technology. Yes, great opportunities, unlimited possibilities, but at the same time, we need to have the governance model that ensure that it's in the right scope.
Thank you very much. If I may turn to Sheikh Hosni, one of the things that really bothers me, and something that I'm sure everybody is concerned about, is the impact on employment. A lot of people are fearful they'll lose their jobs. How do you see this at Oman Airport, or how do you see it unraveling itself?
Yeah, thank you. When you said bother me, I thought you had bad experience in the airport, so I was actually holding my heart. So.
I had an amazing experience. In fact,
good.
I haven't been back here for a while, so I hadn't experienced the new airport. One of the things I wanted to tell you was it was an extremely friendly experience for me.
Thank you very much. Good to hear that. But yes, going back to your question, I think what do I think from AI is that it will change the way and the style of our work. It will not be a threat on people. And I think we are responsible on doing this. What do we do in Oman airports? We try to enable technology to help our staff to work better. Like, for example, when we have the crowd coming from certain destinations, we know that this much of number of people are coming, so we alert the immigration, we alert the check-in counters, we alert, and this is how we make sure that we use our staff in the best manner.
So you moderate your capacity accordingly?
We do. So like, for example, if you have departures, then you, by using AI, you put more workforce in the departures, and vice versa. If you have more traffic and peak in the arrivals, then they go down. Up is arrival, down is departure. Or sorry, the other way around. So you take the capacity that you have into the place where we have the peak in. And how do you know that? By having the right tools, by having the right technology that actually gives you that ability ahead of the game.
Let's go into the back offices. That's the frontline stuff. Yeah. But the back offices, do you see any impact in the way people work? Because AI is taking over the repetitive, the logical, the rational tasks. And so I'm wondering whether there would be any impact, because this is one of the biggest fears. You look at, just yesterday, the Financial Times said 34,000 people lost their job in January at Apple and Google and so on. And the OECD have, the World Economic Forum says in the next 10 years, potentially 1.3 billion could lose their jobs. But equally, there'll be new kinds of jobs emerging, no doubt. But I'm just curious from your perspective, how do you see it affecting your back office operations?
Well, it will actually impact the back office and the front office. So, for example, now we're having to fix new e-gates to process more passengers. Those e-gates will help us to delay our expansion of the airport. But what they will do also, they will actually make us have less number of counters where it is manned by officers.
Right.
So that will reduce, definitely. We can see it today.
Right.
But there are certain other jobs that you might have even more in the IT sector, IT arena. I don't know if this is the right time, but I would like to tell you that what we did lately last year, we created an aviation lab in the airport. During that period, before that period, we did a thing called hackathon. In that hackathon, we opened the floor for our staff and SMEs to come up with ideas. And with those ideas, we got very good cost saving and some new bright ideas that we'll implement, hopefully you'll see in Oman airports.
Inshallah. Shukran, thank you. Dr. Albana, as HR, I mean, you are I know you're a modest man, and I very appreciate that, but as most people know here, you're highly experienced, and you've had exposure in many with the government and otherwise. So I'm very curious, because I know you've told me that you are non-IT, and I am looking for a non-IT perspective. I'm looking for the human perspective. What do you see the impact of AI on the way people work? Because it requires, no doubt, it's demanding a different kind of approach, a different kind of skill. How do you see the skill emerging, and how do people what would people need to do? Oh, sorry. What do people need to do to prepare for this?
Very good. This is a very good question, and this is going back to the broad statement I said, the impact on us, whether we like it or not. And my colleague here stated very good when he talks about the logistics approach and the impact of decision making. Even my colleagues talk about the leadership. To answer the question, let me go 7 years back. There was a very good report produced by KPMG globally. And that report was addressed to 1,300 CEOs globally, in 11 countries, 10 sectors. Airline, telecommunication, banking, hotels, airports, etc. And the question was to them, as CEOs, what do you want out of your teams? What do you want out of your employees? Give us the top 3 things that you need. And the answers was, number 1, I need creativity and innovation. I don't want normal admin work from my team. I don't want routine work. That's finished. I need creative people so that they can add value. Number 2, they said, we need speed. I don't want it tomorrow, I need it yesterday. That means immediately. They need speed. And the third thing is, they need them to be oriented with technology. You know, talking about AI, talking about ChatGPT, etc. If we look at it today with generative AI, that's answered the question what the CEOs want 7 years back. Today, generative AI, what makes for us, it's really, if I need to produce a report, and we'll give you an example. For example, when I was with Gulf Air, 2008, there was, you know, almost the war in Iraq was over, etc., and we need to fly there. We need to fly. In the management meeting, we are the 7 top people, the CEO plus we are 6 chiefs as deputies, and the discussion was, we're debating, shall we go? No, the risk. People will risk, but I've said, leaders are associated with risk. If you need to be a leader, you need to take risks. So anyway, so what has happened? Finally, we decided to send the head of security with 2 teams, 2 members, to go and survey whether it's flying or not. After 2 to 3 weeks, they came up with a report, etc. Today, generative AI can do that with you in no time. There is no need to send that people and it would take 3 weeks, etc. Generative, this is what talk about speed.
Yeah.
So things is really, that's the way moving forward. So therefore, when it comes to employment and people have no choice rather than to go out of their comfortable zone, to the growth zone. Don't say, I am fine, I'm in a very good stage. There is no standing still. In business, either you go backward or you go forward. You decide. And that's always my recommendation, even to job seeker, to employees. Don't think that I am stable, I'm fine. You are not fine. You need really to work. So this is basically the impact. We look at it from a CEO perspective, as leaders, or as employees within human resources department, or employees in general. That's the way, because generative AI is really affecting every sort of business, whether my colleague mentioned customer services, logistics, medicine, Pfizer Group, you know, I remember I'm subscriber of the training magazine, and there are the top 100. Pfizer, they used to spend $1 billion on training and development, particularly on the research, on the laboratories, etc. Now, generative AI really take over all of these things. So this is the impact I'm saying, and that's what really matters. Because, as I said, whether we like it or not, we live in VUCA world. It's volatile, it's uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Absolutely. So being hungry for knowledge is a...
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is why, you know, when I've said AI will take over many jobs, but not all the jobs. The technology is enabler, and I said, the keynote speaker, they did mention, it's enabler, this is my belief. Yeah. It will help you for decision making, because decision making, there are 2 types of decision making. There's program decision making, there's non-program decision making. The program decision making, like ATM. ATM, they make a decision, you put your the card, put the password, they will give you money, make a decision. But this is a program. Security guard on the gate will make a decision. By that program, you have badge in, no badge out. But you and me, we need to make decision based on analysis, based on data. Generative AI will help me a lot to make that decision, make it speed and moving forward.
Absolutely, I agree with you. If I may turn to you, Gaith, I've got something that I want to discuss, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, but Professor Peter, in one of the slides, triggered my thoughts. There were, you know, different ages. I think it started with Tom Hanks. So it's different ages and different receptivity to technology. I know that one of the things that you're concerned about is whether people of a certain age will be able to adapt to this change. And what's your thought in terms of from employment perspective?
I think, I mean, if I can relate to that discussion of Professor Peter, the evolution of generative AI, if I can relate to the statistics, you know, it's in 1 year, there were 24 billion traffic onto the AI tools in 1 year. And it's still developing. It's not mature. These tools are not really matured. But what actually differentiated from, again, the other AI tools, that it is very intuitive and anyone can use it. You mentioned, you know, an 85, your mother was using it. And I'm sure this would unlock the potential of a very old people to be more productive. I'm not saying that they are not productive, but actually that's the, it's a big enabler to them to actually compete with the very young people. And if I look at the, you know, in any organization, you would have people who are very productive, they do a lot of things and you have also the normal average people. What would differentiate actually in the future, how people would use AI to be more productive and more efficient, as Dr. was mentioning. It's helping us to be more efficient, more productive, more, let's say, have more speed in deliveries and all of that. And I think I think all people wouldn't actually lack that. But I think the working systems we have, that people will go to retirement, and then that is, we tag them with unproductivity somehow, I think that will not be there
But
at
it's shifting the emphasis from technical knowledge, because these tools don't require you to have technical knowledge anymore.
At all. And I think that is the knowledge, as my colleague was mentioning. Today, if I want to, let's say, prepare a presentation for a board of directors, I would go and search on the documents. I'll go to Google, for example, and all of that. Today, you can just ask an AI tool in a very specific context, this is what I wanted to do. He would generate it in a few minutes. Then I would go back and actually review it. If I will put my context of the organization, I would review it and I would approve it. Rather than spending weeks or a few days to prepare that, I would prepare it in a few hours. Give this example to everybody in that organization, how fast they can do their job. And I have actually a very specific example in IT, for example. Today, our software engineers, they would love the traditional ways of developing and having software development. They tend to spend months to develop an application. But today, with the AI and generative AI and specific tools, you could actually ask and even have actually the image how this application would look like, and they would generate that code for you. And then actually, as a software developer, you would go and review that if you have certain additional things. That cycle is shortening from months to few days. And that is how you could actually be a better person and more productive. I think it's a big enabler for everyone, not necessarily regardless of the age, and regardless of any background as well.
Ala, I have a question. At Omantel, you're talking about all this data being generated and the traffic. I have one thing that concerns me, and that's the governance. Let me give you an example. Just day before yesterday, my brother-in-law is an expert on Microsoft technology, and he's rolling out Copilot for the government of UAE. I can't go into the details of it, but a certain body within the government has suddenly become very concerned. He's rolling out Copilot with ChatGPT-4. Very concerned that these tools, once they are embedded within your core systems, become extremely intrusive, and they start taking data, and data which sometimes is highly confidential, and putting it in the public domain or into the non-confidential domain, and which then poses a huge problem for organizations. So I'm just curious about how you would deal with it at Omantel, and how do you safeguard against that from a governance perspective?
I tend to agree with you now. AI as a tool is fed by all of us. It's data that we put on the internet. So it's living and it's performing based on data and models that we have provided. So we are feeding the monster, if we say. And we did this for the internet, we did it for the OTT players, and now we're doing it for the AI platforms. Now, the other perspective, for AI to develop further, it would need more sophisticated data rather than the data that is available on the internet, which is corporate data. Now, I agree with you. Copilot is one tool that the likes of Microsoft are using to penetrate to this data so they can improve their AI capabilities. So that's a race. Now, from a compliance point of view or from a risk point of view, there is a risk that we need to deal with. But that risk should not stop us from using those tools. But quickly, I think between regulators and governments, they should conclude how do we best use AI. Not to stop it, definitely, it can't be stopped, for sure, but how do we control it, if I may say. But I'm not sure if we will have the ability through regulations to control AI. But I tend to agree with you that there is a huge risk that AI today is listening to all our calls and meetings, and it's capturing all of this data. So this is taking AI to the other level, and this is what they want. The other perspective that I wanted to bring to the discussion is today, and we've seen this in COVID. When there was a race to produce the vaccine, certain companies kept the vaccine to themselves. And the distribution globally, there was a shortage. Similarly, today, there are two companies, without saying their names, are taking the lead on AI. So how will the rest of the world benefit from AI as a capability? It is something that needs to be tackled. It needs to take the right discussion. I think AI should be available for everyone. It shouldn't be a monopoly or a control, because nowadays it's two companies who are investing heavily. They have the power of investing. They have access to data. They're moving from internet to corporate data. This will make them stronger, but then they should be fair to the rest of the world so that we can benefit from AI. So this is another thing that needs to be looked at, how the rest of the world is going to benefit.
The governance is still being thought through, I think, is one of those challenges. Yeah, very challenging. Ahmed Khadr, I have a question for you. Talking about data, because it's garbage in, garbage out. I mean, the AI tool needs to learn. I mean, as you know, ChatGPT 4 was thrown into the public domain for that very reason, because they're using us as the laboratory, the world. And I've been on it right from the beginning and well before I was involved with it. And Gemini, the Google Gemini, I use it quite at an advanced level. And I've noticed that it's constantly changing. It's becoming less and less difficult to detect whether it's human or AI producing this. But so it's improving, refining. But from an internal company perspective, it's very important that this data that you feed it, any tool that you use AI, is qualitatively good, it's robust, reliable. How would you see it from Etisalat's perspective?
This is one of the most important points, because there are around 3 or 4 common fears, like let's say about AI, when it comes to AI. First of all, the ethical concern, which means AI being biased in its algorithm and according to the outcome it generates, being unfair of the data we are feeding it. Okay. Second is the risk of the cybersecurity attacks, data breach, and this kind of stuff. So it must, as said by Professor Peter or Malik, that we have to have an ethical guidelines and framework that should govern the whole AI ecosystem, because AI is not only artificial intelligence. There is ecosystem that should be there to manage it in a proper way. So I think these 2 elements with ethical and risk fears should be in the heart of everything we are doing while implementing or setting plans for AI implementation. It should be governed by a special committee. Now we started to see AI chief officer and digital transformation officer, right? It has to have a committee inside any organization that should govern this. And the risk here is the AI is evolving itself, right? So we have to have close monitor of what AI is going to bring in the future, not only monitoring the capability, the existing capability, because after 1 week, AI is, another risk of AI is, as any other invention, like for example fire, or at that time, it has pros and cons. But the cons and the risks are very visible. We can see it. The risk of AI is it is autonomous. Like we don't know what is going on in the back end, right? Yeah. So it requires lots of monitoring, lots of close governance by any organizations to monitor this.
Shukran, thank you. I know we are running out of time, so I will just go on to the last bit that I want to talk about, and then if you can indulge me for a minute or two, because I have something else to do. But if I can get you to give me a perspective, Sheikh Hosni, on what do you think the future looks like from your perspective? So this is a personal thing I want to ask you, and I want all of you to say something about it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we should have that fear from AI. We should use it to our benefit. We should use it to make our lives better. But I just wanted to ask a question. If AI became really dominant in our lives, do you think it will prevent us from the pandemic that came just 2 years ago? Do you think it will stop the pandemic, AI?
I don't.
Just think about it. Some might agree and some might disagree. So that's another question I would like to ask later on. Another thing is we have lots of attacks coming to the airport, and we're using AI to help us in reducing those attacks efficiently. But again, it's always up to the organization how they would like to use the AI and how much they would like to get use of it, how much they want to actually be exposed with their information, because the more you expose yourself to AI, the more it will suck
Absolutely.
from your information, the more you are vulnerable.
Yeah.
So you need really to be careful.
It's a spiral.
About it. And
Absolutely.
it's just a fruit of thought. But I just wanted to end my comment.
Yeah.
The team who came, the volunteers, we're having a job advertisement in Oman airports by the end of the month. So we welcome you to come and put your CVs. HR
I
team
think
is
that
here.
deserves a clap. Yeah.
Since we are an HR conference, it's not AI. I said I'll end this with this approach. And thank you, Doctor, and your team again.
That's an added bonus. Thank you very much. What's your thought on what's coming? And we're running out of time, so if you can keep it brief. Yeah.
And very short, very short.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Maybe this is a message, the prospect to all of us in this hall. Particularly when you talk about the management and the leadership. Number one, when I talk about leadership, I don't mean CEOs, not only general managers. Leadership, you can be a leader at your home. I'm talking about team leader at the call center.
I disagree, because I have a phrase.
Yeah.
At home, I have somebody who I call
Who's leading?
she who must be obeyed. So that's a different.
But she will lead. So my statement is we talk about the digital leader. And when you talk about the digital leader, particularly we as a human resources in our organization, and that's message to me, and always I tell my colleagues, my team, you don't have to be expert in the high-level technology, ICT, but you need to be familiar with what's going. You need to watch the top emerging technologies. Because expertise, we leave it to the ICT departments, etc., because it's like finance with the finance, etc. But you should not be isolated. So when I talk about the digital leaders, I'll give you one or two features or characteristics of that. Like number one, you accept change. And this is why we said in change, don't mind the change your mind in order to really move forward. And also, with that, you need to be really familiar with what's going when it comes to high-level technology, etc., and be transformational leader when you transfer this to the entire team. Mm-hmm. So by that time, you will be really moving and coping. This is the way I see the prospect. Otherwise, there are threats and opportunities, and threat on people, threat on organization, opportunity for people, opportunity for organization. How you look at it from that perspective.
Very good. I think we've almost run out of time, but if you want to say just a quick word.
I think in the future we would everybody would have his machine teammate where she helps him to do things better. This is, as Gartner, they predict by next year, 90% of the people would have actually a machine teammate. I think that is happening. On the risk sides, I think there will be a rise on the AI machines to govern AI.
Yeah.
I think that's happening, and that's very important to mitigate the risk.
Putting in the guardrails is now a preoccupation. How do we protect ourselves from this running wild and taking over our lives? But if I may now take back the conversation for just a minute or two. My perspective, and which is what I said, I have a perspective. My perspective is I'm of an optimistic bent. I tend to look at things a lot more optimistically. And when you talk about the virus, I was thinking the virus itself is quite a teacher, because think about how the virus spread. Some of you who know me know that I was in Wuhan just a month before it all started shutting down. I was there. And some claim that I probably brought the virus back with me because I had a terrible cough when I came back. So don't tell anybody this. But the point is that the virus has mutated and changed. Organizations need to learn from that. We need to mutate and change, adapt to change. The virus has got a survival instinct. You can never get rid of it. It constantly changes. An organization that evolves and changes is going to survive. This is fundamental. So take the lesson from the virus. One last thing to close this discussion. Some of you also know that my initial background is in literature and psychology, and poetry is my first love. Much as I then, I was at my alma mater, KPMG. I come from KPMG originally, by the way. I'm a chartered accountant too. But poetry is my first love. So what I told the guys at the back is, could you type into Gemini a request on the HR conference, but to create a sonnet in the Shakespearean style. Let's see what they come up with. So if you can, yes, write a sonnet in the Shakespearean style on the theme of HR conference. So let's see what generates. And there it is, yeah? If I can stand up and read it, it said, in Muscat's Hall, where palms and knowledge greet, HR minds convene, with questions deep and vast. No humans' wars, no workplace tensions meet, but silicon dreams a future cast. Will robots judge our skills, assess our worth? Will algorithm write our fate's decree? Can AI's wisdom guide a human dearth, or sow discord upon the harmony? With furrowed brows, the experts take the stage, extolling benefits of swiftness, scale. Yet whispers spread of jobs upon the wage, of shadows lost in digital trails. Can man and machine collaborate as one? Find work's new dawn beneath the rising sun. Thank you very much. Thank you.